All right, let's take a look at a couple more examples. This is really where you need to just problem solve and take a good hard look at the shapes you're given and figure out what shapes are at play. So right now I see a rectangle and I also see an upside down trapezoid, or kind of what appears to be an upside down trapezoid. So nothing is being taken away. These two shapes are being combined or stuck together. So I'm definitely gonna add those together. So let's go ahead and jump right in and find the area of the rectangle first. You gotta make sure that you label the shape you're using. So area of a rectangle is length times width. So I have 25 times 40. I should be putting yards. All right, let's go ahead. I don't have a calculator, so I'm gonna go ahead and multiply off to the side here. So I have 25 times 40, zero placeholder, that's 20, and that's 8 plus 2 is 10. So that is 1,000 square yards for the rectangle. Now we need to figure out the area of the trapezoid. So let's take a look at what pieces we're given. So we know what the area of a trapezoid, I'm gonna write out the formula. It's 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases. So I need to figure out my height and the two bases. So I see one of my bases is labeled 65 yards to the first power. The other base, again, using our knowledge of rectangles, we know is going to be 40 yards because the bottom is 40 and opposite sides are equal. So let's go ahead and start plugging in what we know. So we know that this is going to be 1/2 times the height, we don't know yet, times 65 plus 40, okay? So now we need to figure out the height. Now remember, the height has to be perpendicular to both bases. So I'm not given this information, but I am given another piece of information that the total height of this shape is 55 yards. And I'm also given that the height of the rectangle was 25 yards. So what I could do, since this is 25, well, 25 and what other number gives you that grand total of 55 yards? That would be 30. So this must be 30, again, because when you combine your 30 yards for this height and the 25 yards for this height, that gives you the grand total of 55 yards like the problem gave you. So that is going to be times 30 yards. And now we can go ahead and solve. Half of 30 is 15 times 105. And again, I'm just gonna have to use my multiplication skills. Zero placeholder, 501, add those up. All right, and we get a grand total for the area of the trapezoid of 1,575 square yards. And again, we are adding these two together. We're combining this shape. So the grand total area is going to be the area of the rectangle plus the area of the trapezoid. And now we substitute in what we know. So that's gonna be 1,000 square yards plus 1,575 square yards, and that gives us a grand total of 2,575 square yards. And that would be your total area, for that composite figure. We're gonna do one more together, and then you will go ahead and complete the extra practice in your packet for those funky shapes on your own. All right. Let's take a look at one more example together. Let me slide this up. Okay, let's take a look at what we're seeing here. Well, I see this small triangle, I see this small triangle, but I also see a big triangle. I like to tackle things using bigger shapes if I can because it eliminates some steps. And then this shape, this is an interesting shape here. This must be a trapezoid because if you turn it to its side, then it certainly looks more like your traditional trapezoid where you have two parallel bases and then two unparallel sides. So that's a trapezoid right there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and tackle the area. Let's do the area of the trapezoid first. And even though it didn't indicate, it does appear that these are perpendicular. And I'm telling you right now, because I didn't give you enough information, we're gonna use that as the height. So we're gonna assume they are perpendicular to the bases. So we know the area of a trapezoid is 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases. So this is going to be 1/2 times 6 times the sum of 10 and 7. Half of 6 is 3. 10 plus 7 is 17. 3 times 17, 30 plus 21 is 51 square millimeters. Okay, so that's the area of the trapezoid. Now we need to tackle the area of the triangle. So if we look at this sideways triangle, well, I've got a base of 10, because this is 10 spanning all the way across, and 3 is the height, because it is perpendicular to the base. And we know the area of a triangle is 1/2 times base times height, and we get, let's see, 1/2 times 10 times 3, half of 10 is 5, and we get 15 square millimeters. And we are adding these two shapes together. There are no divots. We're not taking anything away. So my grand total area, so area sub T, is going to be the area of the trapezoid plus the area of the triangle. We're going to add those two values together. And we get 66, square millimeters as our final answer. So go ahead and try the extra practice on your own. Again, break it down into smaller shapes. If you have some colored pens, I think color coding can really help, because it helps some of the shapes jump out and it just differentiates the shapes from one another. And then check the answer key on the website.